I once heard a man say, everyone great isn't famous, and everyone famous isn't great. So let me tell you about my granddad. He is 5'10", church suit wearing, slicked back hair rocking, Southside Chicago raised. He went to school with Emmett Till in the 1950s. And he remembers the signs, niggers and dogs keep off the grass. He can talk to you about mental freedom, being black in America, and corned beef hash all day. He and I share the same name, Michael Nelder Henderson, same love for books, handwriting, and attention to detail in fashion and style. He is Vietnam War veteran turned barber turned liquor store owner turned bus driver turned language professor turned pastor. If you asked him what his craziest job was, he'd probably tell you brothel manager when he was in the Navy. Because the sex workers would tell him things like, most men don't come to us for sex. They come to us to feel known, to tell them what they can't tell their wives and their girlfriends. You know, you never know what my grandfather's going to say. We were riding in the car once between conversations about God and self-worth when he looked at me and said, you know, Michael, I even love the person you pretended to be. I didn't know what he was saying. It was like he could see every costume I've ever worn and was telling me that he doesn't believe in Halloween. I'm the eldest grandchild, and sometimes I think he is a portal to who I'm becoming. Sometimes I think he's trying to save me without even telling me. I started writing his quotes on napkins and receipts just to document the breadcrumbs he leaves behind, like I wanted to be able to open up my journals and share with my future kids our message in a bottle conversations. You know, one thing my granddad told me, if you really want to know how God loves, you have to void your 5 senses. So I want to know, have you ever stopped touching, tasting, seeing, smelling, hearing for one moment? It's kind of like you become this asteroid floating in space, everything and nothing at the same time. And I started realizing maybe my granddad was saying, maybe God's love begins by taking asteroids and somehow sculpting love into darkness. My granddad invites me into spaces I've never been before. He says, you know, Michael, there's a greater reality that I've seen in you, but your fear and your purpose can't occupy the same space. And I think, how can there be days when I can't find worth when there's a living man who can see a universe inside of me? Sometimes I wonder if he is looking at me like an old photograph of himself. You know, I treat him like he is a Jeopardy contestant and I'm Alex Trebek with all of the questions. Granddad, what about this? Granddad, what about that? Granddad. I treat him like a time capsule, like a good book I can't put down, like a museum of artifacts that give me clues to who I am. He loves breakfast, books, and jazz. His laugh sounds like an alarm waking me up to meet my future. If you asked him why he read so many books, he would say, growing up the way that I did, I just had a different need to know who I was. Do people care to know who they are anymore? Do people care to know who they are? My granddad's vault is a heart made up of every person who has ever called him friend and every person who has ever left him. He told me once, you know, Michael, I realized most people never really wanted to get to know the real me. I just formed a substitute for a part of themselves they didn't know how to get to. And I didn't say anything in that moment, but what I wanted to say was, you know, Granddad, if that's true, maybe you were just a perfect reflection to someone who's never seen a mirror. For those of you that don't have a granddad or have lost your granddad, you can borrow mine. Just make sure to keep a pocket full of napkins. I knew he was my best friend when I told him about my abortion, when he looked at me across the table and he said, son, I didn't cry from 1962 to 1985 out of bitterness. You are safe here, son. Let it out. You are safe here. Let it out. You know, I heard this Tibetan saying, Wherever you have friends, that's your country. Wherever you have love, that's your home. And when I think about my granddad, I like to think wherever you have family that accepts you, that radically accepts you for who you are, that's where you belong. Thank you.
Should we bring him back out? Should we do it again? Michael, I could listen to you talk forever. Forever. Did you feel that way? It could have never ended. It could have gone until midnight and someone would have been like, maybe it's late. Right? It is endlessly poetic and beautiful. Michael, thank you for sharing your heart and your wisdom. And thank you to Michael's granddad for creating a space for belonging. Oh my gosh.